Timer go so I can cut a little bit. And all right, cool. So before we get started, do you mind stating your name, job title, and school you were with?
My name is Michael Maldonado. I'm the assistant principal at Hidden Cove Elementary School in Southwest Independent School District.
Thank you. So what this interview will be centered around is campus improvement plan. Any questions about that before we get into it? Do you mind just giving us a brief explanation about what a campus improvement plan is and how important it is to you personally?
So as far as what it is it's kind of our guiding document regarding the way we develop everything from resources we're going to purchase to professional development plans, and it kind of is the way we plan on spending our money. It's probably I would say extremely important to me for a number of reasons. One is it's how we kind of create budget line items, and then it's also another way for us to coordinate programs, and it's also a way for us to make sure that we're staying in compliance with our Title I guidelines. And so, I guess the brief overview is it's a guideline for areas of need and improvement. It's our plan of action toward that, and then it's important because that's basically how we guide everything that we're doing.
Sweet. So, for time's sake, I will just say CIP instead of Campus Improvement Plan. So, the first question is, how does the process of developing a CIP work, and how do multiple people come to an agreed upon consensus for a CIP?
It's kind of a complicated process if you really get down to it, because before we can start developing our CIP, we have to develop our CNA, which is our campus needs assessment. And so we'll try to get a panel of teachers. We try to get parents to come in. We try to get community partners, businesses, and industry to come in. But at the elementary level, there's not really a huge amount of interest there. So usually it's a group of teachers. It's the admin team, the instructional leader, the instructional coach, and then we have a few solid parents that keep coming in. And we'll meet a couple times to start looking at data and say where are we in need, what are some things that parents would like to see as areas of improvement, and then we kind of meet with teachers to say what are some things that you want to improve on. And once we've got the CNA done, that's what we use to kind of guide and help build our CIP. And once we start that process, really we look at what we did last year, reflect on what was good, what was not good. Did we have enough money allocated? Do we need to allocate more? Did we overspend in certain areas? And so our campus is very high needs in regards to academics, but it's also high needs in regard to some of the social programs that we have to offer. And so one of the things we looked at this year was, were we doing enough to provide, I don't want to call it welfare assistance, but social and emotional assistance, as well as some financial assistance. We need to work on bringing in community partners to help serve those needs. Building a consensus is hard, though. We have to really get buy-in from everybody, and the parents are who we really look to provide us that feedback of what's working and what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is it's hard to get parents into the campus.
Yeah.
But we try to work together, and it's a process. It's a process that's ongoing. So even though we have one that we start with at the beginning of the year, there are times when we have to adjust it based on different needs, or something will come up. Or if we have a grant that gets funded a certain way, we have to adjust some of our line items. But we really work to get everybody together, and the principal will present it to the community, usually at a parent meeting. And so at that point, we'll get feedback, we'll make any final adjustments, and then we'll use that as our air quote official CIP to start the year.
So you say you bring in teachers and other members of the community. What is there? Are there certain people that you look to bring in, of whether it's new teachers or old teachers, or well-known community members, or parents of different socioeconomic backgrounds, or?
Yeah, so our school is 98% low socioeconomic status, so we do a really good job of getting those groups in. One area that we struggle with is bringing in parents of our English language learners, and some of that I think is a fear of the educational setting. So that's been my goal this year, is to reach out more. And since I'm the LPAC administrator, I've built some relationships with some of those parents, and so we have a core group of about 3 or 4 that's really committed to coming in. And so that's one of the groups we're reaching out to. But we try to get parents from across the board. Usually they're really active when they're in the lower grades, but as they start getting older, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the parent involvement drops off just a little bit unless there's like a performance. And so one of the things that we're targeting for next year is kind of hooking the parents in pre-K and kinder, developing those relationships, and that way we can keep them involved and keep them all the way throughout their elementary career. As far as the teachers that we look for, we do look to the veteran teachers, kind of because they're most familiar with the data and the students. But I like to bring in some of the new teachers because they do bring in some fresh insight, and also it gives us a chance to develop them as future leaders as well. Um, the community members, we really kind of look toward the local business owners because they have an insight, and I know they're only in elementary, but of what the needs of the community are. And so one of our goals last year was working on career in college and military readiness. And so we did have some transition nights where we brought in community members and said, hey, what are some things that you need? And what the feedback that we got was, even though we're inner city, there's still a lot of we're very close to some farms, and so they're saying if we can get our students to start familiarizing themselves with some of that knowledge and field work, then that would help them get a job while they're in high school and possibly right out of high school. And so one of the action plans that we did was we actually developed an urban farming program that we're implementing next year. So we'll have chicken coops and we have garden beds and a couple other things that we're working on.
All right, move on. Next question. Once a CIP is agreed upon and developed, what is the process that you and your staff go through to figure out priorities and focus areas for the school year and then future years after that?
So the first thing we do is we have to make sure that our plan aligns with the district's improvement plan, and so that's really our guiding structure. We do have some oversight from our district Title I and external funds person, and so she provides a lot of oversight and guidance to making sure that we're prioritizing in line with the superintendent's vision. And so really, because we look at STAR scores as a primary indicator of where we need to focus, but we also look at TELPAS data, so we look at our English language learners. And so those are our two primary data points, and we look at those things as priorities. Now, the other things that we do look at are the supplemental programs. Is there a way that we're able to supplement through like the STEM program and get kids to school? Because if they don't want to be here, then they're not going to be here learning. So we have to find a way to bring them in. So we really try to be smart with our priorities and not just focus on academics, but also find those enrichment programs to kind of help the kids find an incentive to be here.
So you mentioned that you kind of align it with district and then certain Title I specifications. Does any of that influence the development of the CIP, or do y'all kind of just look at it as a campus first when you build it and then compare it to what the district has?
Yeah, and so I mean, there are some initiatives that are mandates from the district, so those kind of are line items that are automatically in there. And an example of that would be like iStation and Imagine Math. Those are two programs that the superintendent believes very heavily in, and so those are kind of automatically in our CIP. But we try to keep it campus oriented first, and then if there's something at the district level that we need to put in, because for PE they require us to fund and put in the CIP the fitness gram component, and so we have to make sure that we're following along with those things as well as any other initiatives. But we really try to be local first, and then look at the bigger campus plan as second.
So in the process of developing your campus one, but also making sure you comply with the district, is there any issues of butting heads or different opinions that happen? And if it does, how often?
There are some. It doesn't happen very often, but there are some times where there's a program that we feel really passionate about, or an item we feel really passionate about, and like I said, the oversight comes from our external funds program coordinator, and she's the one that is kind of the one we butt heads with. And the problem is that when she does butt heads with us, there's not a lot of guidance. It's just, you can't do that, or she doesn't say if you do it this way, if you word this. And so I think if she would provide a little more guidance onto how our programs would align better, it would make our job a lot easier. But essentially we just get it kicked back saying no, redo it. And so it drags the process out, which is upsetting to parents because they're having to come in extra days or extra hours before or after school. And so it happens not super frequently, but it does happen, and it's usually because of really just lack of communication between us and the Title I coordinator.
So next question, we talked a little bit about the specific people you look to bring in to help develop your needs assessment and then go into the CIP. But what do you think goes into a well-developed, thought-out CIP? Not just the people that are a part of it, but the ideas and process of how it comes to be.
I'd say one of the most important things is that we're being student-centered. I've had the luxury now of working at all three levels, elementary, middle school, and high school. And there are a lot of times when we're developing plans that people who are on the committees tend to focus on what's easiest for the teachers or what would make their lives easier. And so it's really important that we have to put students first. We have to be student-centered, student-oriented. And the other part of that is be data-driven. Like, we have to be able to justify why we are including these items. One of the biggest things that I've run into, especially at the elementary level, is what I call legacy programs, or things where it's like, well, we've always done that, or it's a cute program or it's whatever, but there is no academic benefit, or there's not enough of a benefit to warrant continuing the program, and that does get a lot of pushback. But when you kind of use the data to say, look, this is the return on the investment, and if it's not something substantial, then you're valid in saying this needs to be at least reconsidered, if not removed. And when you bring in new programs, there's pushback because it's like, well, I don't know how to do that. It's going to require training, which can then impact other parts of the CIP. And so, depending on budget issues, that also kind of limits what we can add. And this year we took for the upcoming school year, we're taking a $40,000 hit to our budget because one of our magnet schools is getting their own building, so they don't have an operational budget. And so that's going to hit us kind of hard and limit some of the programs that we're able to offer. But really we want to just make sure that we're data based and student oriented.
So you mentioned that the focus to make sure that it is student based and not teacher based. Why do you think it's so easy to cross that line into the student based decisions and cause teacher based decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I think in theory we all want to work to the betterment of our students, but as teachers we like to be comfortable. Adults are just like students. They don't want to be challenged. They don't want to be pushed out of their comfort zone. So it's easy for them to say, well, let's do this because this is what's going to be easier for me. And a good example of that is, I guess they don't really teach the TEKS sometimes in elementary. They like to do activities. And so it's, well, I've done this activity for 20 years or 10 years or 15 years. And it's great and it's a cute activity and it gives you something tangible to walk out with or put on the wall. But the kids aren't getting any content out of it. Mm-hmm. And so, my thing is I was a history teacher for a long time, and history or social studies is one of the areas that's just not taught consistently at the elementary level. And so we were looking to try to include some history curriculum and as part of our CIP, and the teacher's like, well, we do social studies already. When I'm like, well, what do you do? Well, we make pumpkins and we have the kids decorate turkeys. And I'm like, okay, well, where's the lesson that goes with that? Well, we talk about Thanksgiving, but again, it's really activity based and it's fun. It's easy for the teachers because they just have to put out some cotton balls and some black line masters and the kids color, but the kids aren't benefiting. They're not learning anything about it. And so really, it's just easy for us to fall back on those things. And so we have to kind of challenge the teachers and just remind them to be growth mindset oriented. And that's, at this particular campus, that's been a struggle. Our teachers are really set in their ways, and we have to tell them, look, even if I give you feedback that's constructive or not positive, it's not I got you, it's not that we're out to get you, it's that we really need you to develop your skills to help our kids because our scores are so low across the board that we need to be working to do those things. And so I guess an even better example would be writing. Students here have consistently not done writing, and this year we implemented writing across the curriculum, and the teachers were really upset about it. And when we literally just showed them data of samples and just full quality samples, but also handwriting samples, they were kind of flabbergasted. We have a 4th grade student who looks like she can't hold a pencil. Her words are indecipherable, like on the page. And so we showed that to them and said, this is why we have to practice writing, because in 4th grade there's a writing test, and tell me if you can read this. No, we can't read it, it's just scribbles. And that's why we have to start at pre-K teaching kids basics, like how to hold a pencil grip. Have to teach writing and reading throughout the curriculum, embed it everywhere. It's social studies. We have to embed it in science curriculum. And so that's the struggle. It's just getting, look, it's not about what's easier for you in doing activities, but we need to be student oriented and look at what's going to benefit them the most long term.
So you mentioned what you call legacy programs, where it's, oh, we've always done it this way, we've always done it this way, but they're not necessarily taking any gains from it, the students. What have you found to be the best method or practice to show the teachers, yes, I know we've always done this, but it's not benefiting? Or like you're talking about, a lot of what your instruction is doing is kind of teacher-based, and there's stuff that the kids can get more out of by doing. What have you found to be the best method to show this to teachers and try and push past it?
Usually there's like the early adopters, the teachers who are like really into it. And so the easiest thing we do is we just show them the data. Like, you kept doing it your way. This teacher did it the way we asked them to do it, and let's look at the end results. And so we brought out end-of-year assessment data for our early readers, so pre-K through 2. And the teachers who adopted the new strategies, their students outperformed far better than the students who did the traditional methods. And so we had one teacher who was adamant that students shouldn't be talking in class. that a quiet classroom was a good classroom, which is ideologically opposed to my way of teaching. You know, you need to have learning, especially at the lower grade. She was a kinder teacher, and we talked about with her the importance of oral development. You know, oral language skills. The kids, if they can say it, then they're teaching each other about it. They're demonstrating knowledge through talking. And when we got her data point back, her kids were performing at it's called K.2, which is 2 months in kinder, but the students that were in the other teacher's class, most of them were performing at least a 1.2 or better. So the second month of first grade at the end of the year, they were already outperforming those students. One thing we did for that particular teacher was we tracked her kids all the way through fifth grade. So the students who are still on campus, we looked at where they're at in first grade and second grade, and every single one of them consistently was at least a year, if not more, behind everybody else. And so once we kind of showed her the data outright, she's like, well, maybe I can try it that way next year. And so that's really what we have to do, and it's a process. It's not easy. A lot of teachers, they don't like to be pushed. They don't like to be told that they're doing something wrong, and because in their hearts they really are trying to work for the kids, but they're just not realizing that the way we taught kids 20 years ago, 15, even 10 years ago, isn't a best practice today. And so we have to just be honest, have those harsh or critical conversations, not necessarily harsh, but those uncomfortable conversations where we say, it's not personal, it's not about you as a person, but it's like these children, we have to make sure that we're not doing a disservice to them, because this is a person. If we can't teach them to read and we just pass them through to middle school and then to high school, then we're sending out adults that aren't going to be functional in the real world.
So next question. So with a CIP, there can be a lot of change that happens, whether just through the school year or whether within the next few weeks. How do you personally handle the change that comes with the CIP and even the last second changes that have to happen as well?
Yeah, they actually happen quite a bit, and so we'll kind of get a committee together as quickly as possible and say, hey, let's look at a proposed change, or if there's something specific like a line item that we messed up, we forgot to put in there, or a program that was mandated, then we get everybody together real quick, present the reasons why we want to make the change, and then we update it. We kind of do a real quick approval vote. It's almost more of a rubber stamp vote. And then we do present it to the community, usually through a parent. We have at least once a month parent meetings, but we do have other events that we spread out throughout the month, and sometimes those events, whether it's like a literacy event or a Donuts with Dad type thing, we'll present the information there to get community input. And then if there's no major objections, we'll publish to the website, and then we'll keep a copy of it in our Title I compliance box. I'm, I guess, more directly involved with ensuring that we have people to come to those meetings, and then I'm in charge of publishing to the website, scheduling the parent meetings, and keep maintaining the Title I compliance box. Our campus principal and the team usually develop the actual changes together. But we try to be as open and transparent as possible. It's kind of inconvenient when those things pop up at the last minute, but there's been a few months here toward the end of the school year where we've realized that we forgot something, or something was worded incorrectly, and sometimes it's just clerical errors. We code things incorrectly, we forget to put one of the target areas on the CIP, and so we'll have to just go back and make those adjustments.
Okay, final question. So what were some current learning goals and priorities from this last school year? I guess maybe the major ones that wanted to be implemented in this last school year, and then how successful or unsuccessful was the campus, and what's the plan for next year according to the CIP? I
kind of touched on it earlier. The biggest thing, our biggest target area was writing improvement, and both quality of the writing, but also the handwriting itself, like the penmanship, because our students are struggling, and next year they're changing the ELARTIQs to include cursive, and so we're really going to have to struggle or be intentional with our instruction, because the students who struggle with print handwriting are going to struggle even more so with cursive, and they're starting in that as young as second grade. And so we had some success. Like we said, we did have kids do better, but as far as the quality of the writing, I would say it was unsuccessful in the sense that, just based on STAR data, we had, I think, 8 kids out of about 80 pass the STAR test. And so it's the 10% passing rate is really something that is upsetting. But it's, as low and upsetting as that number was, it's actually growth from last year. And so we'll take the small victory there, but we realized that there's just a lot of work left to do. A secondary focus was reading instruction, and it was kind of a, I guess we had a new campus principal this year, a whole new admin team, and so the teachers weren't really feeling all the new policies that were coming in, and part of that I think was the leadership was given a mandate to come in and improve scores, but it was just kind of too much for the teachers. There was too much change, and so I mentioned earlier about teachers struggling with being asked to do new things, and that was a big pushback. So we struggled a little bit at the beginning of the year, probably about spring break. Once we got STAR focused, the teachers kind of came around, and we used some new close reading strategies, and that helped improve the scores. And we did have some good gains there as well. So the focus going in, that leads directly into our focus for next year, which is going to be literacy, and we need kids across the board to be better readers, both as far as STAR assessment scores, but also we want them to become readers just for enjoyment. And so we've applied for and received a few grants to help us in that. And so our CIP next year is going to be very heavy on literacy and on family engagement, because we really think if we get the parents hooked and give the parent strategies on how to help the kids read and better comprehend, then we'll improve our scores, and if the reading improves, the writing will improve. And so we're kind of tying that all together.
Okay, cool. Well, that's all the questions I have. So thank you for your time.